Hello, Internet, and welcome to the Collective Arcana. We're a channel all about tabletop gaming. My name is Wyatt, and today we're going to be doing a review of Pathfinder 2nd Edition's Absalom, City of Lost Omens book. First things first, this is a hefty tome. If you can't tell, it's right around 400 pages. That makes it, I think, maybe the second or third largest book for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, behind only the core rulebook and maybe the first bestiary. But I think the first bestiary was under 400, and this is very nearly 396. So I think this is a bit longer. So what did they do with all that page count? Well, they did a lot. This is a deep dive on the largest, most diverse, and arguably most likely most important city in the Golarion campaign setting. Now, word is at one point this thing was only about 300 pages. I believe also at some point the Grand Bazaar was also sort of part of this book. So I'm not sure if they dropped the Grand Bazaar and it was 300 pages, or if it was 300 pages before they dropped Grand Bazaar. Either way, they decided to add 300 additional pages. I guess their thought process, as I understand it, was let's not regret not putting something in this book. And I don't think they really could. So we begin with a complete breakdown of the history of the city, thousands and thousands of years of history. For the most part, just sort of, the big beats and everything, but there is a nice little timeline, with just, I suppose, also big beats, but nice little timeline showing you moment to moment, as well as in the central part of it, bigger, more sort of textbooky deep dives into some of the shaping of the city. And that goes all the way up to the current affairs, things that are affecting the people and the city right now in the setting. As such, this book is going to cover organizations, groups, all manner of different factions, as it were. So you can create lots of different stories. If you're looking to do an intrigue campaign, this book has got you covered. Everything from the noble houses to different organizations and guilds, gangs, several different gangs, creepy cults, and pretty much anything you would need to have a whole bunch of individuals either at the forefront or in the background working against each other. It also has nice little sections telling you about different historical events and places within the city that could still have some stories left to tell there. And there's also lots to explore. There's the flooded puddles district. There's underground, like a whole city where where Absalom has been built and rebuilt so many times over the centuries after different, conflicts and weather events and things like that have caused it to have basically these layers of other city beneath the sidewalk and the stonework in the city proper, as most people know it. Or you could go weirder than that. There's this place called Shadow Absalom on the Plane of Shadow that is this sort of dark mirror image of Absalom. And most places on the Plane of Shadow in the Golarion setting, or in the Pathfinder setting, are sort of ruins and just like no man's land sort of place. Nothing is really there except horrible stuff to kill you. And so there's no life, right? Or at least not as we think of it. But the Shadow Absalom is totally different. It's a metropolis in and of itself with these people that may or may not want to also be influencing Absalom Prime, or whatever you want to call it. And so that sort of bleeds over into the organizations that you see as well. One thing that we've seen with the Lost Omens books, and it's continued here, are these little sort of asides on most pages. And they have a few different types. A lot of them are going to be written in universe, or at least sort of like they could be in universe, and they're going to be little tidbits you could just read off to your players. Or they're going to be little story hooks, like there are a couple of different ones from the City Watch, and they play out both as just a crime report and also as these sort of plot hooks and events that you can just sort of drop on your players as they're walking down the street. And there's a lot of walking to do. There are 250 different-ish points of interest. So each of these is going to get a couple of paragraphs, about a half a page or so, some a little more, some a little less, that are just these little dives on what's at this place. 250 places. That's a lot. It's broken up, thankfully, over several different districts within the city. So it's not just all at once, although it is still sort of all at once. But each of those things could be an important place, or feature an important person, or an important event, or just some sort of weirdness, something that you can bring into your game and get your players' attention, or inspire yourself to write a whole adventure. If this is starting to sound familiar, it's very much like the Mwangi Expanse book, which I also loved. One of the most represented organizations is the Pathfinder Society, which is both an in-game organization of explorers and sort of catalogers of the weird stuff of the world, and also, of course, the name of of Paizo's organized play game within the Pathfinder game and setting. So as such, it gets plenty of coverage, as does the City Watch, which is good because the Agents of Edgewatch adventure path that was published, will benefit very heavily from having this book. If you're running that adventure path, this seems like a must-have, honestly. Especially if you and your players like to go off book and sort of explore and not just necessarily stick to the strict beats of an adventure path. This also goes great alongside the Grand Bazaar. As I sort of mentioned before, the titular Grand Bazaar is in the city of Absalom. I believe in the Coins District, but there's a lot in that book, so I could have gotten them mixed up. But I believe it's in the Coins District. I think it makes the most sense. Could totally be wrong. Let me know. But yeah, so that means that, you can play these right along beside each other, and those two books together, you've got all these new items and everything and the setting to put them. Additionally, in addition to what you get in the Grand Bazaar book, in this book you just have a whole lot of indexes for different restaurants, temples, as well as guild halls and taverns and entertainment venues and all sorts of things that your players may need to find. So you're going to get information about where they are, and you're going to get information about, like the name and sometimes the proprietor and stuff like that. And that's really good because it means that you're going to have something that you can refer back to when your players say, hey, I thought that tavern was in a whole different part of town. You're like, no, for sure, it was in this part of town. Depending on how good of notes you take when your players ask you for a random tavern that you think is never going to get used again, that may or may not be a problem that's come up for you. In addition to those places index, we have 120 pages of NPCs. Now, these NPCs do not have technical stat blocks, although they do tell you an ancestry, sometimes a heritage, and a class, and a level. So you could theoretically pop into Path Builder or something like that. There's a lot of tools out there that you could just generate if you knew you were going to need that NPC's actual combat stat block. But so just having that information is pretty good. It allows you to generate one on the fly if you need to, and can also just inform different things about the character, the NPC as they're interacting with them. If this character is an alchemist, then you can make certain assumptions about, DCs of certain checks that they might be able to roll, either for the party against them or them against the party or something like that. So just that information is good. And each of these takes about maybe a third or a fourth of a page. So 120 pages, there's a lot of NPCs. There are so many NPCs in this book that we have 5 kite enthusiasts. 5 of them. I don't know when I'm going to need it, but I like it. And don't worry, those are broken up in addition to just being sort of presented, I believe, alphabetically. At the end of that NPC section, there's a little glossary, so you can look up and see, I need a ship captain, or I need an artisan, or I need an assassin, whatever it may be. You can look and you can find, and they'll give you that list of NPCs that fall into that category, like Kite Enthusiast. We also get a small handful of items and equipment primarily related to the Azarketi, which is an ancestry that we actually sort of strange story there. So when the Ancestry Guide came out, this book was supposed to come out, we should know, this book was supposed to come out in 2021, I believe. And then it got delayed because they wanted to add 100 extra pages so they would never have to go back and add something they forgot, right? So what they did was, because the Lost Omens Ancestry Guide had additional feats for the Azarketi, but the Azarketi hadn't been released yet because they are in the Absalom book. It's all a very convoluted way to say that we now have an officially published version instead of the web supplement version of the Azarketi. I don't believe we got any new feats with them, but I could be totally wrong. We definitely did get some new art, at least new art that I hadn't seen, and it's all gorgeous. Speaking of art, as is always the case with this line, they knocked it out of the park. The art direction in this book is it's peerless. Everything is beautiful. Every piece of art, every design, the way that everything fits together. It's a real joy just to flip through. It's the kind of book where, you just want to have it sitting around so you can open it up and flip through it. And that's really been the case with all of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition books, and especially the Lost Omens books. We have art of different architecture around the city, different places and different things, sometimes influenced by, because it's a melting pot city, so lots of different types of architecture. But we also get setting art, like just, sort of just establishing shots as they might be in a show. And real slice of life stuff, just showing people going about their lives, sometimes bitter and hard, sometimes joyous and fun, like in a carnival or, a play or something. And then they also have organizations and so much NPC art, whether it's, for the noble houses or whether it's towards the back. A lot of the NPCs, and there's a lot of NPCs presented here, have art. So even if you're not going to use these NPCs necessarily as is, it's really nice to have the art here that you can associate with them, or just hundreds of pages to art. Just show your players. They're not going to know. Just flip it around, show your players, you look like that. Move on with your life. They're not going to know that's not the same guy if you're quick. Also, we got this great big map. Let me hold it out for you noisily. Look at this thing. Look at it. It's very cool. And that's the overall map. And inside, when you're going through the different places and the different districts, they have like the big zoomed in of just that section. So it's an even, bigger, clear. That's plenty big, but each district is much larger and clearer, so that you can go in and you can see where all those points of interest are. They didn't do it on this map, which is good. I think it's nice to have that nice clean map. And then in the book, you have the map with all the stuff that you're going to be referencing anyway. Now that's what's in the book. Let's talk about what I think of it and the value. So as big as it is, you should know it's going to come with a larger price point than some of the other books. Especially, this is definitely the most expensive of the Lost Omens. Yeah, this is marked as retail for about $55. You probably will find it cheaper in different places, especially if you wait for a sale. But I do think it's worth that price just in terms of how much you're getting. And we should establish that I am not the target audience of this book. So when I say I think it's worth $55, you should know that I really do think it's worth $55. When I say I'm not the target audience, what I mean is I am not I don't play in the world of Golarion. I don't play... I'm not going to be playing an Absalom, most likely. I am a homebrew GM, and I play in my homebrew world, and I still have consistently been proven wrong every time I look at one of these Lost Omens books and say, it's probably not going to be a lot in there for me. And I'm wrong all the time. Because, like the Mwangi Expanse, the other big expansion that I just didn't think was going to be for me, the reality is that if you're a homebrew GM, you've been stealing stuff for years and years, right? So... well, I guess it depends on, if you're a new homebrew GM, you've just been stealing stuff for weeks or months. But homebrew GMs, all GMs, we steal. And this is just so much stuff in there to cherry pick. Like the Mwangi Expanse, if you just get this and treat it as a whole entirely separate campaign setting, the way that, like the way that D&D might release like the Eberron campaign setting. An Eberron campaign setting is like, here's the entire world of Eberron in a book much smaller than just this city book or just that Mwangi Expanse, which is just a section in Golarion. And so what you're getting is you're getting enough to deep dive. You're enough to play for years as if this was its own private setting. And as an extension of that, if you're a homebrew GM, even if you don't have a city, even if you don't have the city of Absalom, you probably have a city somewhat like Absalom. Maybe not quite as big, maybe not quite so diverse and colorful, but you're going to have a huge city with a lot of different traders from different places coming in and a lot of different organizations vying for control and a lot of, just adventure waiting to happen, sort of big city in a fantasy setting. Very common. And this is gotta be the best thing to go to crib, to steal and cherry pick from. You can file the serial numbers off of Absalom and drop it into your world, and it's probably going to work really well. Just think about how long it would take you to compile 400 pages of information that makes sense for your world, and now know that you can just drop this in and it's done. Or maybe you don't want the whole city. Maybe you already have your own city meticulously planned and it doesn't fit with that. But you do need to populate it with a bunch of noble houses and stuff like that. Something that, maybe you had never thought of running your setting or running an intrigue campaign in your big city setting. So you never really fleshed out all the different organizations stuff. Well, you can just take the organizations from this, change the names if you really need to, but you've got the set motivations, the feuds, the alliances, the schemes, all that ready to go. And all of that information is really well organized as a reference tool. So that's it. That's the City of Lost Omens, Absalom. I think it's a terrific book. I think even if you're not playing in Golarion, it's still worth it. If you are playing in Golarion, it's really, really awesome. If you're playing in the city of Absalom, it's pretty much a no-brainer. You need to have it. If you're running Agents of Edgewatch, you probably need to have it. This is just such a central... This book, I think, is going to be as central to a lot of different adventures and campaigns in Golarion as the city of Absalom is lore-wise for that world. I think it's going to be something that is going to get referenced and used quite a bit going forward. If not necessarily with adventure paths and stuff, then definitely with little references and here and there throughout it. I think that all roads lead back to Absalom. What did you think? Is there a favorite faction that you have, a favorite organization, a favorite piece of art? Come down to the comments. Let us know what you liked best about it. Have you played in Absalom before? Have you gone adventuring? What was your favorite thing that happened there? If you liked the video, hit like, subscribe if you haven't already. That helps us out. Copy the URL. Go paste it somewhere. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching. Welcome to the Collective. And you have a great day. We'll see you next time.